Hi everyone, on behalf of IUG, I would like to welcome you to today's webinar, Customer Experience Reporting, Chasing the Unicorn, presented by Virsae. Thank you for participating in today's webinar and for your continued support in this IUG program. Before we begin, I have 3 quick housekeeping items to go over. First, today's webinar will be recorded and available for on-demand. Second, a Q&A session will follow today's presentation. All questions will need to be entered in the question window near the bottom of your GoToWebinar screen. Third, there will be a short evaluation that pops up as you exit the webinar. Please make sure to take a minute and let us know what you thought of today's session and what you might like to see going forward. Let's get started. Ray, I would now like to turn things over to you.
Thank you very much, Paige. I appreciate it. I'd like to thank you all for joining this morning. I know most of you are getting into the hearts of your day or are already into the heart of the day here, and I recognize that you're busy, and so I appreciate you joining us here today. As mentioned, my name is Ray Pearson. I'm Channel Director for Virsae, and my contact information is up there if you'd like to reach out to me via email after we're done. And there's a survey that goes out at the end of the webinar, and we do appreciate it if you fill that out. What we're being told is that there is an appreciation for the fact that our webinars are relatively short, that they are not overly salesy, but they talk about issues that are important, and that we tell you truthfully what we can do today and what we can't do and why. That really drives what it is that we do. So if you'd like to see something different, please do fill out those surveys. Let us know what you'd like to see in the future, because we really do drive these webinars based upon what we hear from you. So as I mentioned, this will be a short webinar today. I've got about 20 or 21 minutes of speaking, and then we'll open it up for question and answers. And so what we're going to talk about here today is we're going to talk about customer experience reporting. And the very first thing that we have to do is we have to talk about what customer experience reporting is, and then why does customer experience reporting matter? And why does Virsae consider it to be a unicorn? Some of you out there might be saying, yeah, I think it's a unicorn too. But for some folks, they think this is easier than it really is. And so we'll talk about why we believe this is a unicorn. And then we're going to talk about what Virsae is doing to rein in that unicorn. And we'll obviously have question and answer at the end of the session. So as I go through here and talk about this, you will on occasion hear me say CX reporting as opposed to customer experience reporting. Those are interchangeable. It really just depends on how many syllables I have to speak and whether or not it makes any sense. For the most part, I prefer not to use CX. I prefer to use the entire term, but you will hear that on occasion. Just a fair warning here. So the very first thing that we have to do is we have to define customer experience reporting. And as you can see, there are millions of results referencing customer experience reporting. And I can guarantee you that if you go diving into this search result, that you'll find differing definitions. So some of the definitions will involve customer feelings. Some of them won't. Some care about the product that's being purchased, and some of them don't. So you'll find a wide variety of definitions out there. But one of the things that they all have in common is that it really is the sum of every interaction experience a customer has with a business. And so how we like to look at it at Virsae is that, customer experience is really about the mechanics and the environment of the interaction a customer has with you. And I stress that because in a lot of cases, when people talk about customer experience, they are actually talking about customer journey reporting, which we are not going to be talking about today. Customer journey reporting can be a part of customer experience, and we have to mention it here today because it can be a critical measurement. But unlike customer experience reporting, which speaks to the ins and outs of how customers interact with your organization, customer journey reporting is more about how the customer can interact with you and the ease of that interaction. So for example, do customers have to enter in or repeat their customer number multiple times when talking to various members of your organization? That information and the rating of that experience would be part of customer journey mapping. It's a completely different world. It's not what we're talking about here today. Customer experience reporting is really more about, as that customer goes through your various systems and interacts with your organization, what sorts of things can go wrong that would affect that customer experience. So again, really important that we separate these two because they really are different things. So now that we have that out of the way, let's talk about why customer experience reporting matters. And the bottom line is that if a customer has had a bad interaction, whether it be related to poor voice quality, super long hold times, scripting call issues, like for example, if a customer gets put into a scripting call loop, which happens more than you would ever know, they are unlikely to do business with you again. As a matter of fact, what's really interesting is if you look at this recent PwC survey, what you're going to see here is that 17% of US-based customers would consider shifting to a competitor after one singular poor experience with a business. And if they have multiple bad experiences with that business, they are 60% likely to look for a competitor. Now, what's really interesting about this survey is that in the international market space, it's even more perilous for you. International customers, after one bad experience, are 50% likely to switch to a competitor after one bad experience. So they don't have any tolerance whatsoever. And obviously, bad customer experience can increase your churn rates. It can cause brand damage and obviously have a negative impact on your revenue. So customer experience reporting is very important for organizations that have multiple ways to interact with their customers. So considering that most businesses spend millions of dollars on marketing and advertising, it's important to protect your investment by gathering information about customer experience. So customer experience insight can help you reduce your churn while building brand loyalty and increasing revenue. As a matter of fact, in that exact same survey, customers had indicated that they would be willing to pay up to 16% more for good customer experience. Oh, and they also believe that businesses have lost the human touch, which we'll talk about in a little bit. The whole idea of voice disappearing, there are a lot of analysts now that are backtracking on that. As a matter of fact, voice is having a resurgence, if you will. And one of the examples that we're going to talk about as we talk about how Virsae is chasing this unicorn will involve a voice call, because voice is one of the last resorts when all of the technology fails. People still pick up the phone, and yes, even millennials will pick up the phone and have a conversation with you. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. But I thought it was really interesting to see that customers have indicated that they would pay up to 16% more for the goods or services in return for good customer experience. So here's the problem, though. Gathering and analyzing CX reporting data is really, really hard. There's literally an ocean of data out there. And so you have to ask yourself, do I want to boil that ocean for the information? And if the answer is yes, that's fine. But then you also have to say, well, geez, do I start seeing diminishing returns from the money that I've invested to process that ocean of data? Now, some of you might be sitting there in your offices going, yeah, well, Ray, look, there are plenty of platforms that promise 100% insight into customer experience. And that would be true. But the question that I would have for you is, have you thought how they do it? Well, how they do it is they have one single box. If you can get 100% of your entry points and interactions into one box, then absolutely, customer experience reporting is much easier. But think about how things are really set up in reality. In reality, most organizations use multiple best-of-class solutions to enable customers to interact with them. So, while this cartoon, which I absolutely love, is an exaggeration, most of our best-of-breed contact centers look something closer to this than just simply a single box. And now, while this is an absurd exaggeration, it is not unusual that we have multiple best-of-class products that we're using in our contact center. And then the question then becomes, okay, well, now I need an analytics tool. And then, oh, hey, by the way, I need something to help me make sense out of that analytics tool. So the question that you have to ask is, how do we gather all of that information from these disparate systems and do it without overspending? So that's why we consider this to be a bit of a unicorn, because CX reporting is difficult. It's not an easy thing to do, and there is no easy button. You have to have access to the right data. You have to know what to do with it, and then finally you have to make it relevant. And that is a piece that a lot of analytics and reporting vendors get wrong. Providing the information is fantastic. Making it relevant and giving context is really the key to good customer experience reporting. And even in a 100% Avaya environment, it is still challenging because, again, most of us have invested in Avaya's historical best-of-class platforms. And so that means that the entry points into my organization may vary. I might have TDM trunks. I might have SIP trunks, for example. Some of the solutions that are in that best-of-class Avaya stack, they are simply branded solutions that were purchased. And that's not a slam on Avaya. That is the way businesses grow, right? If you find a technology that will benefit your customer base, it's a whole lot easier to go buy that company and integrate that into your product stack than it is to try to develop it on your own. And so a lot of those solutions, they have different ways of reporting how interactions are coming into the system. They have different reporting points. So there's not really a synergy, if you will, of the CX data that is recorded and how it is reported. And then finally, if you just think about a typical environment, in a lot of cases, you might have protocol handoffs. You might have a SIP call coming in, being converted to H323, and then back again, depending on where that interaction goes in the environment. Well, every single one of those points can affect CX, and it is that hidden customer experience thing that's difficult. So it's very challenging to come up with appropriate customer experience reporting, even if you're in an Avaya, 100% Avaya space. So let's take a look at the 100% Avaya space a little bit deeper, because this is one of the areas where Virsae is trying to chase down that unicorn. So we realize that the data that defines customer experience is everywhere. So it's not just a matter of, did the customer get answered by an agent in skill X, and did they get put on hold? That's obviously part of the customer experience, but it's really the fact that every single device out there is a data agent, and therefore a source of customer experience knowledge. So, because for example, if you've got a particular device in your environment that's not configured correctly, that can affect customer experience. Again, that would typically be hidden, but it doesn't have to be hidden. And so what we're recognizing is that the data that exists to define customer experience, it's everywhere in the environment. And our cloud-based AI-infused approach puts us in the driving seat to try to capture that unicorn. So, for example, we're already collecting a lot of this data today. So we're collecting that voice quality information. We're querying the SBC, and we're gathering the logs from the SBC. If you've got the extended call history turned on, we're taking advantage of that extended call history port so that you can have that that handling information as to what happened with this particular call once it entered into my contact center space. We're looking at the SIP messages that are flying back and forth between the session manager and all of those SIP entities that it's managing. API requests, what's happening in your experience portal, Breeze and Oceana. We're capturing all of that information. And then also this what I refer to as the nuts and bolts of what's happening in your environment, which absolutely have an impact on CX. SNMP traps. We're doing SNMP walks out to devices saying, hey, how are you configured? What are you looking like? Basic connectivity, which can tell you about network problems that you're having, which obviously can affect call quality. And then, of course, standard things like server status. Do you have a server in which the memory is going out of control? syslog and event logs, Windows services that we're monitoring, and then, of course, the classic little, CDR. So this is all of the information that we're collecting today. And wherever that information exists, not only are we collecting it, in a lot of ways, we're actually analyzing that data as well. Those of you that have seen previous webinars from us know that we actually take that information and we'll analyze it and summarize it for our customers. So we've talked about this before in a previous presentation about big data, but I want to just point this out here quickly because I think it's important. In order to ensure that you're not going to overpay for analytics, you've got to have the ability to process big data. So more data means that you can build a more complete customer experience view. And of course, there's value in being able to analyze billions of data points across an entire install base to help customers draw conclusions as to CX. So for example, if I've got a particular configuration in customer X that I know causes a customer experience issue, and I see that that same thing is set up in customer Y, I can actually draw conclusions and help customer Y to optimize the environment to take care of that customer experience issue. So, today, Virsae can already report on customer experience points that we've talked about here, such as faulty call flows, if there is bad call quality, what happened with call disposition, so analyzing that, cradle to grave call handling and the like. The challenge, and this is why we consider it to be a unicorn that we're chasing, is you've got to link all of that information in a way that businesses can make sense of it all. So today, for example, if you have Virsae Service Management installed in your environment, you absolutely will be able to, utilizing our platform, go in and look at customer experience points. So all of these things that we've talked about, you can go in and you can look at those. The challenge is that today you have to kind of sew those things together to paint a complete picture. And so what we're doing in our lab right now that we're going to give to our customer base is we're going to sew all of those things together, just as we've done with call quality dashlets and those sorts of things, where we're actually providing you with free consulting by taking our AI engine and taking that information and drawing conclusions for you. That's what we're doing here in the CX reporting space. So our plans are to use Alex, our AI engine. And so those of you that have joined us before, you know that I've mentioned Alex here before. What we're doing is we're going to take that AI engine and we're going to walk our customers through individual customer experience reporting, starting with the entry point. And so this is an example. Again, we're using a voice call here, but the application of CX reporting would be the same. If it was a chat or something else, the information that gets collected is slightly different, but the concept is exactly the same. So we start off with our entry point where Alex would say, hey, yeah, we actually saw that this particular call entered your environment on a SIP trunk, for example. We captured these SIP pieces of data. And then the customer heard ringtone. We collected a digit after an announcement, and that information would be presented to you. And then we would provide information on what we all consider to be sort of standard customer experience stuff. When I talked to an agent, how long did I talk to an agent? How long did I wait for an agent, for example? What skill set did that particular agent have? So we we go ahead and provide that information. Did that call get transferred, for example? Is that indicative of a first call resolution or a training issue? So that information will be provided, and then walking through all the way to the completion of the interaction. So this is what we would refer to as the sort of standard, customer experience information, knowing exactly how a particular interaction came into your solution, what sorts of things happened. But here's the interesting thing is that there are a whole lot of other things that I've talked about here already that can have an impact on customer experience. So I'm going to walk you through a snapshot that gives you an understanding of the various data points collected today on a simple phone interaction, a voice interaction. And so in order for us to have both summarized and individual customer experience reporting, you've got to have a way to pull the information in from all the disparate solutions and make it make sense. So check this out. So other things that can affect customer experience for this particular customer, it's not just about did the agent handle the call appropriately, are the critical customer experience elements in the customer interaction configured, and are they configured correctly? That can have an impact on CX. What about the devices within the environment, the gateways and the endpoints? Are they configured correctly? If not, it can cause call quality issues. That information needs to be pulled into CX reporting as well. Finally, the agent and the skills and the preferences, we talked about that already. That's information that we need to know about. And then the standard call routing and call quality. All of that stuff affects customer experience. And if the only thing we're worried about is, did my agent put the customer on hold or not, we're missing an entire hidden space. And that's why when we talk about this, it's like, hey, we're chasing the unicorn. So look at this. This is the relationship map of what happens with a simple voice interaction in your contact center. So with just that one call, these are the touch points that we observe and we report on today. The challenge for us is to take it and put it all together. So again, this is very typical for contact centers or entry points that are built on best of breed solutions. We've got to get an understanding of customer experience, and it is a lot like chasing a unicorn. So our job as a leading unified communication service management platform is to take our AI engine and just make it a bit easier. So this is what we're working on in our lab right now, and this will give our customers yet another point of contextual insight into our already powerful UC service management platform. And I want to just take one moment here as I wrap up to mention that because we are cloud-based, if we were a traditional software vendor, for example, you might say, okay, great, you're working on this. So when would you anticipate this being in play? And I would say, yeah, we're going to have this in our release in 2021. But with our cloud-based environment, we can actually come out with a new release of our platform every 2 weeks. And so we can incrementally give this functionality to our customer base, which allows us to turn things around a lot quicker. And frankly, it allows us to get input from our customers as we deliver this new functionality. So again, this is our challenge right now to capture that unicorn and make it make sense for our customers. So if customer experience reporting is important to you and you don't have a single box solution, what can you do to chase down that unicorn? Well, first, subscribe to a cloud-based service that manages huge amounts of data for vast number of enterprises. And that allows you to gain the benefit of customer experience reporting without boiling the ocean, because we elevate that information for you. And then, of course, if you're already a Virsae customer, you'll be able to leverage your existing investment in a unified communication service management to gain new business insights. So I hope this has been helpful for you in understanding customer experience, that a lot of what you're hearing in the marketplace about an easy button, it really is marketing hype. It's very, very difficult. If you've got further questions, please visit our website. That's a great treasure trove of information. There's all sorts of videos. If you're not familiar with what we do, you can see the benefit that Virsae Service Management can bring to you. You've got the generic email information there. And then don't forget that we will be at Avaya Engage 2020. So visit us at booth 410 during exhibit hours. We usually have a great amount of people surrounding us. We do live demos in a live customer environment, and we usually have some great conversations with both existing customers and potential customers. So at this point, with the last few minutes that we have, I'll open this up for any questions that might have arrived.
Hey, Ray, it doesn't look like there are any questions inputted into the question box at this time.
Okay. And that's not surprising. This has a very specific application and very need, but if you think of something after the webinar, feel free to reach out to me directly and I will answer those questions for you.
Actually, one just popped in. It says, so when you develop the CX reporting capability, will it be offered alongside other BSM modules like Service Desk, Capacity Manager, etc.?
Yes. Yeah. For most of our enhancements, they already fit one of the ITIL stacks. And so it's very rare for us to create a new module and say, hey, if you want this feature or functionality, you need to subscribe to this new module. The last time that we did that was with our security module, and that's just really because it was a completely different area that customers had been asking for. This particular CX reporting experience would be part of the functionality that we provide as a combination of availability manager and configuration manager.
Awesome. Well, at this time,
Okay.
I'd like to thank our speaker from Virsae, Ray, for taking the time to speak to us today. As a reminder, you will receive a follow-up email with the on-demand link from today's webcast. We have so many great webinars coming up, including our professional development series that is already underway every Thursday at 10 a.m. Central. Be sure to register. Please make sure to complete the short evaluation that will pop up as you exit the webcast and let us know how today's session went. And from all of us at IUG, thank you and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody.